Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Fear. I'm your host Zishan, and tonight we're diving into a story that will leave you questioning the boundaries between the living and the dead. The abandoned asylum follows a group of urban explorers who enter Crescent Grove, a decaying asylum said to be haunted by the spirits of patients long dead. What begins as a thrill-seeking adventure quickly spirals into a chilling nightmare as they encounter the restless souls of the past, and the asylum's dark secrets start to unravel. So if you think you can handle the terror, let's begin. The old asylum had stood on the outskirts of the city for nearly a century, its decaying walls hidden beneath a shroud of ivy and mystery. Locals called it Crescent Grove and avoided it like a cursed monument, speaking in hushed tones about the patients who had lived and died within its walls. Rumors swirled about dark experiments, strange disappearances, and hauntings that plagued anyone foolish enough to enter. The gates were chained, the windows boarded up, and the heavy silence around it was suffocating. For most, Crescent Grove was a place of nightmares. For a group of urban explorers, it was the ultimate thrill. Jake, the leader of the group, stood at the crumbling gate, gazing up at the towering asylum. The massive structure loomed against the overcast sky like a sleeping giant, waiting to be disturbed. With him were his friends, Maya, an adrenaline junkie with a love for abandoned places; Ryan, a tech geek armed with cameras and equipment to document every moment; and Sarah, a skeptic who didn't believe in ghosts, but loved the excitement of exploring the unknown. "This place gives me the creeps," Sarah muttered, shivering as a cold wind swept through the entranceway. "That's the point," Jake grinned, pushing open the rusted gates. The metal groaned in protest, but after years of disuse, it finally gave way. They walked through the overgrown garden, once manicured and full of life, now a desolate wasteland. The main door to the asylum was wide open, as if inviting them in. As they stepped inside, the heavy atmosphere hit them instantly. The air felt thick, damp, and laced with something ancient, something wrong. The group made their way through the asylum's dilapidated hallways. Graffiti lined the walls, and old patient records were strewn across the floor. The distant sound of dripping water echoed through the empty halls. The air was stale, and a faint metallic smell lingered, almost like blood. The floorboards creaked beneath their feet, adding to the unsettling atmosphere. Ryan set up his camera, panning across the decaying architecture. "This is insane. It's like walking into a horror movie," he said, adjusting the lens to capture every eerie detail. As they ventured deeper, they found a staircase leading down into the basement. The darkness below seemed almost alive, and none of them were particularly eager to descend. But Jake, ever the leader, took the first step. "Let's check it out," he called over his shoulder. The basement was cold, far colder than the rest of the asylum. Their breath formed visible puffs in front of them. Strange symbols were etched into the walls, and old rusted medical equipment lay scattered around. It was here that the first strange thing happened. Sarah gasped, stopping in her tracks. "Did you hear that?" "Hear what?" Jake asked, turning around. "Whispers," she said quietly, looking around nervously. "It's probably just the wind." But it wasn't. As they moved further in, the whispers became louder, like a low murmur of voices just out of reach. Maya clutched her arms, feeling an unnatural chill. "I don't like this, Jake. Something feels wrong." "Relax. It's just your imagination," he replied, though his voice lacked conviction. Suddenly they heard the faintest sound, footsteps coming from the far end of the hallway. They turned, expecting to see someone else, but the corridor was empty. "Okay, now I know I heard something," Sarah whispered, her skepticism starting to fade. They followed the sound down a narrow hall until they found a locked door. The sign above it read, "Ward 9, High-Risk Patients." The door was sealed shut with a large padlock, but as soon as they approached, the lock fell away, clattering to the floor with an unnatural clang. The door creaked open on its own, revealing a long hallway lined with patient rooms. Inside the first room, they found an old bed with torn sheets and rusty restraints. Faded photos of patients adorned the walls, their faces eerily vacant. In the corner of the room, a wheelchair sat in the shadows, seemingly untouched for decades. Ryan was the first to notice it, the shape of a man sitting in the chair. At first it was just a shadow, but as they stared, the figure became clearer. A patient in a hospital gown, his hollow eyes locked onto them. His skin was ashen, and his lips were curled into a twisted smile. "Is this some kind of joke?" Maya asked, backing away in terror. Jake moved closer, shining his flashlight at the figure, but as the light hit the chair, the patient vanished. "It was right there," Ryan stammered, his voice shaky. "I swear to God, he was right there." The group hurried out of the room, but as they stepped into the hallway, they were no longer alone. The once empty corridors now seemed filled with flickering apparitions. Patients, doctors, nurses, all wandering aimlessly, as if trapped between worlds. Their forms wavered in and out of existence, their faces contorted in pain and confusion. The whispers returned, louder now, filling their ears with incoherent pleas and moans. Sarah's skepticism was gone, replaced by sheer panic. "We need to leave. Now." As they scrambled to find the exit, the asylum itself seemed to shift around them. Hallways that led to the entrance now looped back into the building, and rooms that had been empty moments ago were now filled with spectral patients. One by one, they started seeing visions, flashes of the past. Patients screaming in agony as cruel experiments were performed, doctors laughing maniacally as they injected strange substances into the inmates. The group was seeing everything that had happened within these cursed walls, the asylum's dark history unraveling before their eyes. Jake felt a hand grasp his shoulder. He spun around, expecting to see one of his friends, but instead, it was an old nurse, her face pale and her eyes lifeless. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The walls started to close in around them, and the air became suffocating. "Get out!" a voice boomed from somewhere deep within the building. Ryan dropped his camera and ran, the others close behind. They dashed through the twisting hallways, chased by the whispers, the ghosts of Crescent Grove hot on their heels. After what felt like hours of running, they burst through the front door and into the cold night air. The asylum stood behind them, silent once again, as if nothing had happened. Breathing heavily, the group looked at each other, shaken and pale. "We can never come back here," Maya whispered, tears in her eyes. Jake nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. He glanced back at the asylum one last time, and for just a moment he saw them, the patients, standing in the windows, watching them leave. But were they ever truly leaving? Or had Crescent Grove marked them, a curse that would follow them long after they left its haunted halls? Epilogue. Haunted forever. Weeks passed, and the nightmares began. Each of the explorers dreamed of the asylum, the whispers, and the patients. Sometimes, in the darkest corners of their homes, they swore they could see figures standing in the shadows, watching, waiting. Crescent Grove had let them leave, but it would never let them go. That was the abandoned asylum, and I hope you're still with me, because what happened in Crescent Grove will haunt you long after the story ends. As our explorers discovered, some places hold on to the spirits of the past, refusing to let go. The line between reality and the supernatural can blur in the most unexpected ways. If this tale sent chills down your spine, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more terrifying stories every week. Until next time, sleep tight and remember, some doors are better left unopened. Some doors